LLC, and we're back with another video of KIP tips. Before we get started, go ahead and like this video, comment below, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel. Today's edition of KIP tips is part of our teacher series. As I mentioned in our first video, KIP tips for classroom setup, I am a former special education teacher, and I have done it for many years, and I really enjoy it. I don't have any of the quote-unquote horror stories that I've heard about co-teaching. I've never experienced it. All of my co-teachers were amazing, and we had a great relationship. We were able to bounce ideas off of each other, and we were able to make the experience not only enjoyable for us, but also for our students. And so today, I'd like to share with you some KIP tips for creating a cohesive co-teaching environment. KIP tip number 1, discuss roles and responsibilities. It is so important for you as a special education teacher and your general ed teacher to come together before the school year to discuss the roles and responsibilities that you each will assume throughout the year. Now, of course, they may change, and one may decide, you know what, you're better at that than I am. Or you may have to temporarily assume a responsibility or a role because the other person may not be there that day. Some roles and responsibilities that you may want to discuss is grading. Who's going to do the grading? Will you both do the grading together and just split the class in half? Or will one teacher take one class period, for example, and the other teacher will take the other class period if you teach 2 class periods together? In my experience, my co-teacher and I did a combination of the two. There were times when we would split the class in half and I would grade one half of the class's assignment and she would take the other half. And then there were times when I would take a class period and she would take the other class period. Another role and responsibility that you may want to consider discussing is parent communication. Now, of course, if a parent contacts you directly, you have to respond to them. Outside of that, who is going to be responsible for communicating with parents when it comes to progress reports or when it comes to behavioral challenges? I did a lot of the parent communicating in my co-taught classes, and I was okay with that. So those are just some things that you may want to discuss, or perhaps you need to discuss before the school year starts. KIP tip number 2, determine that every student is our student. That is so important and so underrated. You never want a child to feel singled out. You don't want your students to feel like this teacher doesn't care about me. So in my co-taught experiences, both of us assume the responsibility for all of the students in the classroom. Now, of course, I made sure that those students that had accommodations and supports were given those. But outside of that, all of the students were my students. So if I saw a child struggling on a concept, I didn't ask myself, does that child have an IEP? No. I just went over and provided the help that that student needed. And it was the same for my co-teacher. If she saw that a child was struggling, she didn't ask herself, does that student have an accommodation or support? No. She just provided the help that that student needed. In our eyes, every student was our student. In fact, the kids in our class didn't even know who I was there for. All they knew was that they had 2 teachers in the classroom. And then finally, KIP tip number 3, communicate. I cannot stress that enough. Communicate your students that are in that classroom are receiving the support that they need, that they're learning, and that they are empowered to do their very best. And so I implore you, I encourage you to make sure that you're communicating with your co-teacher. And that's all. If you have any other KIP tips in providing us on how to create a cohesive co-teaching environment, feel free to share that in the comments section. Remember to subscribe to the channel